Well, hi there. I'm going to try to help you a little bit further on this Rose for Emily essay. Keep in mind that there are quite a few helps already out there, and if you take your time and go through them, you should be able to really have a good idea of what's going on here. In fact, you have over 10 student-written samples that you can look at, and some of those have my commentary on them that tell you exactly some of the qualities you need to put into the essay, how you can go about this, and there are also several demonstrations that you can look at. So do take your time. So what's the essence of all this? Well, first of all, there seems to have been some confusion about due dates, and I blame myself for that. I must have put something out that confused a few of you. Don't be! It's not due. Nothing is due until September 27th, 9/27. And on that day, you want to have finished a complete rough draft. A complete rough draft. You have, by September 27th, you have written 800 to 1,000 words. It's typed double-spaced. It is MLA format. Did you know that MLA format has a template right on Microsoft Word that you can use as well? Isn't that sweet? Well, in any case, it's typed double-spaced. It's the best you can do to that point, right? So what's the essence of this? Let's face it. It's that four-letter word. Work. So, you read the story, but you don't just read it once. Have you read it twice? Have you read parts of it 3 times, 4 times, more? Have you highlighted? Have you made marginal notes? Have you written questions? Have you written comments? Have you captured your ideas as they're happening? And believe me, they are happening. They are happening. It's a matter of whether you capture them or not. So like little butterflies with nets, you've got to grab them because they're there, right? So how do you find them? Let's get to that. But first, a little more on the due dates. On the 27th, you're going to have that draft all ready, and we're going to submit it to a discussion. And it's on the 27th. It's not the 28th, 29th, certainly not the 30th. Then nobody has a chance to look at your draft. So make sure that your best effort is done prior to the 27th. Then put it in there. I'm going to look at it. Students are going to look at it. We're going to offer constructive criticism, help for each other, right? And pulling together as a team can work amazingly, or it cannot work at all if people just basically say, well, you know what? It's all about whatever I'm going to do. It's all about me. It's all about how I'm going to do this, and I don't really feel any obligation to be helpful to somebody else on it. But if you help somebody else, you help yourself, and that's the way this works. All right, so that's 27th to the 30th. That's not a lot of time, so you got to have it ready the 27th. Nothing before that. I don't know how that got out there if it did. All right, so what am I looking for? I'm going to talk about what I'm looking for, and then I'm going to talk about what you should be looking for. I'm looking for argument. Argument. There it is. First, last, always. Argument. Make a point, back a point, stress a point, use evidence for that point, use reasoning, use direct quotes. We call that primary evidence from the story. Several of them. Because why? That's rock bottom solid evidence, right? From the video, use specific scenes that show you have knowledge of that scene, right? That you have looked at that and you've looked at it carefully, you've observed it carefully, and you've thought about, here it comes, significances, implications, that you've pushed your mind just a little bit further to come up with non-obvious comments that pertain to what you have discovered in your process. So here we go. We want argument. I'm going to want comparison contrast, but only in the sense that, for example, you pick one difference between that text version and that video version, and you explore the implications of it, and you argue for that point that you're driving home. Now, you should want something. You should want to showcase the power of your mind. You should want to back and make a point powerfully, because that ability serves you well throughout the rest of your life, no matter what you're doing. You don't have to be a lit major to appreciate the power of logic, reasoning, support, evidence, persuasion. You don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to have flowery words and language. You have to use hardcore evidence. And you have to do that 4-letter word, work. That means read the story several times. That means highlighted. That means made notes. That means wrote not one draft, but several drafts. You wouldn't go out and decide, well, yeah, hey, I'm ready for the big game. You haven't practiced. I don't think so. I don't think so. No. So, lots of drafts. How do you start? How do you start? You know what? Just start. Don't sit there worrying and project into the future about, I'm not really sure what that guy wants. I'm not, boy, I'm really confused about it. Hold on here. What do you want? What do you want to say? What do you want to back? Because I just want to argue. I want comparison contrast. I want MLA format. I want evidence, obviously, right? I want specifics. I want details. Nitty gritty, get down to it. Okay. So, those are the primary qualities I'm looking for. And your final draft isn't due until October 5th. That's the final draft, and that goes to turn it in. Right? So, here we go. How do I start? Lots of ways. How did I start? How would I start? I just start writing. I don't care if it's garbage. I just start writing all over that paper. Let's set a timer and just keep writing. I'm not going to stop. And maybe 90% of what I wrote is real garbage. Throw it out. But 10% is pretty good. I'm going to build on that for the next draft. And I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to do that over again. No mystery about that. That's just work. That's all that is. It's just sweat equity. Right? So I can cluster if I want to. I can connect those little circles. I know you've seen that before. Now let's just take a case in point. And this is obviously somewhat pre-planned, I'll admit. So I'm interested in the concept of a sympathetic character. And in literature, that means a person who may have committed serious felonies even, may have fallen from grace, may have lots of flaws, but at the same time has some likable qualities, is relatable, has humanity that we can connect with somehow, empathy, sympathy, right? So I could make the case, and I could step out front and be assertive, and that's what you want to do. Just don't hang back and, oh, gee, I don't know how to do this well. I'll maybe just tiptoe through it. No! Be loud, be proud, be brassy, be forward, be assertive here. That's what you want to be. Okay. That's right. That serves you. So I formulate a tentative thesis, perhaps based on all of this writing that I've done. In Faulkner's text version of A Rose for Emily, the main character, Emily Grierson, comes across as a flawed but yet sympathetic character. Semicolon. However, comma, the video version by Lubbock depicts her as a much less relatable character. Now, I wouldn't word it that way when I was done. I did that off the top of my head, and it's not all that great. I know that. But it's a start. So, I've got a tentative thesis. I can defend that. I develop an intro eventually. And in the intro, you can simply begin to state your case. Just don't blow all your specific thunder there, because that is intended to lead in. You can make the thesis your first statement if you want to do that. A lot of people do that because they want to get it out and want to get it in the open. Then they can defend it. Then you can also look at the downsides to it. Are there exceptions? Acknowledge that. That's just honesty. But you can still wage your case. Push it forward. Push that evidence forward. Push that reasoning forward. Argue for your case, your point. Right? Don't be shy about it. That's for sure. All right. So, what evidence? Well, there's pretty solid evidence in the story. After all, she receives a rose even though she put Homer Barron to death and he is rotting in her bed. She gets a rose. Now, she gets a rose in both, but a little bit differently in the video version. And in the text version, she is seen as, quote, an hereditary obligation upon the town. That is someone you take under your wing, someone you take care of. Yes, the aristocracy, the Old South, has decayed just as a mansion, stubborn and coquettish above the gasoline pumps, cotton gins, had decayed, had faded, but yet still has a kind of aura about it, a kind of mystique about it that commands respect. Remember, her taxes are forgiven, they're remitted into perpetuity. and you still treat her as a lady, despite some of these signs of really, really bizarre behavior going on. Right. And holding on to the body of her father. Okay. There it is. Well, so you have plenty of evidence in the text version that despite her failings, she's embraced by the townspeople. What do you have in the video version? You remember you have that scene where Angelica Houston is standing there, and she's almost flirtatious in a very shy kind of, oh, you big old bad northern man, can you take care of this little shrinking violet southern flower? I need somebody to take care of me because I just don't have the wherewithal to do that for myself. And she's got that razor there. Now, I'm overstating the case a little bit. But you do see that there's more than a little bit of flirtatiousness, even maybe sexual innuendo in that scene. And then she is depicted as a dark, almost gothic beauty. Whereas, the Emily Grierson that we know in the text version is depicted as one who may have been prepossessing in her youth, but develops into a woman who is like dough with lumps of coal pressed into her. Puffy, you give the sense of almost sense of obesity there. Certainly decay, right? But in that process still, there is perhaps some room for a sympathetic character, as we call it. Okay, so you have all these possibilities. You can outline, you can simply free write, you can cluster, but you have to start. I mean, you have to say not by worrying and projecting worries, but by starting. Sometimes talking to other people will help you too. Now, if you want a conference with me, I'll be happy to. One-on-one. Hey, fine with me. You don't have to pay me extra. You can talk to me on the phone. You can see me face to face. However, you can give me your paper and I will look at it and comment on it briefly. Send it back to you. Don't do these things at the last minute. I won't have time at that time. So if you're going to do it now and get started. I hope that helps. The paper isn't due until the 5th of October. You have time to use it. Start yesterday. Work on it, and you shall prevail. You shall succeed. And really, anybody can do this. If I could do it, anybody can do it. No question about that. All right. Best of luck to you, and I hope that helped. I will see you soon.